Good morning, good morning. Thank you for joining. This is going to be a fun one today. There is a lot of construction happening below me, so you're probably going to hear it. I'm just going to say that right now before we get too far. I apologize. I tuned the microphone best I can. It's not perfect. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of noise. They're also like doing some construction down the street, tearing up the street, like cutting into the pavement, and I don't know what they're doing, so it's been just super loud here this morning, so we're just gonna roll with it and see what happens. So go ahead and let me know where you're joining from. If you're joining live, say something in the chat and we will see who we've got here. Looks like we've got Mac from Gothenburg. We've got Chicago joining us. New Jersey, New York. All the East Coast people. Awesome from Malmo. Hisham from Toronto. Johan from the Netherlands. This is great. No West Coast. Where's all the West Coast people at? It's not that early in the morning over here. Jonas. Oh, I was just chatting with you. Thank you for joining. Awesome. Robert from Jacksonville. Jonathan from South Africa. Hi, Anna from Brazil. Hi, Chris from Germany. Hi from the UK. Awesome. What a great crowd. Good to see you all here. And yeah, so today I've got a bunch of fun stuff on the schedule. And of course, I'm just going to take questions from you all in the chat as well. Just a reminder, if you do have a question and you want to make sure I see it, make sure to put my name in front of it, and that makes it highlight on the screen, and that's a lot easier for me to keep track of the questions that way. I've also got, and yeah, if you're just joining, apologies for all the hammering sounds. There's a lot of, I'm not in my normal studio in case you can't tell, and that's because it is being worked on down below me. So with any luck, I'll have a nice new studio space to stream from in the near future. I got a couple of fun things and a couple of new things on my desk today. I'm gonna go ahead and let's see, show you my desk here. You can't quite see it, but my two ATEM Minis are now stacked, and that is something I've been wanting to do for a while because it was a giant pile of wires before, and now they're kind of all neatly tucked in. And to show you that, I actually have a fun way to, let's see, with any luck, I should be able to show you from my phone, which is another new trick, which we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to go into, yeah, is that working? Is it on? See it's, nope. Okay. I'm gonna have to work on that. I'm trying a new NDI trick. So, well, actually, it's got a freeze frame, which is the perfect frame I wanted to show you anyway. So check this out. This is the desk, and I can't. It's not live. It's a freeze frame, but it's on a little stand. So I'll see if I can get you a better view of that in a second. So let's take a look at the chat and see if there's any questions so far. Going to go ahead and close out of the map. So, oh yeah, so here we go. This is a great, oops, that's the one I wanted. Any updates on the Hyperdeck simulator with the Raspberry Pi? So that's actually what I was fiddling with right before I was live here, and it almost works. It's so close. I got like one of the clips to play, but I was having trouble with some of the other clips. I think it's because the codec they're encoded with. So I got to do a little more fiddling with that. But that's Jonas from I just saw him in the chat here. He was working on that software, and it's pretty cool. It does make like the ATEM thinks there's a Hyperdeck plugged in, and it's loading up the clips, and I can see that it's trying to play, and I did actually play one of the clips. So I gotta just do more fiddling with seeing what video formats it actually works with. So yeah, with any luck, we'll have some more updates on that very soon. How do I do the short signals before the stream? Is it via ATEM or software? So I can actually show you how that's set up. Let me go over to my software control and switch over to the test one, and then show that to you. Make sure I get rid of my stream key out of there. Yeah, so this should... Yes, okay. I've also got some new macros set up, which makes it a lot easier to deal with this. So this is the software control app for the test ATEM that I'm not actually streaming from. This one's not live; it's just plugged into the other one. So what I've got is I've got in the media pool, I've got my my like still frame graphic, and that's what you see on the background. And then separately from that, I've got a computer over here. Let's see. I think I can show you the multi-view. Let me go over here. So this is the multi-view of that ATEM. So you can see I've got the media player loaded up in the corner. I've also got this computer, which is either showing the chat or showing this, which is a full-page website, which is called bigtimer.net. And it's just a countdown. So I just type in 10 minutes before I start the clock, and it just starts counting down. So then I have to merge the two, and that's where we use the keyer. So did I hook this up right so that I can show you the multi-view and my computer screen at the same time? I think I did. I think I can do that. Okay, it's kind of small. You can see it, kind of. So in here, this is where I need to now go and deal with the keyer. So I'm going to go do the DVE. We're going to use the computer source. We're going to scale that down to 20%, and then show, where is it? Fill. Okay, and then I'm going to show it. What's going on? X, Y, size, computer. Am I doing this wrong? Crops, DVE, upstream keyer. Okay, that's weird. What's going on? Reset everything. Okay. Anybody have any idea? There it is. Okay, something was wrong. So yeah, this is now I can control the size, and I can position it up there. If I wanted to crop, I can also crop it in. But so then I can, well, you can see it's it's not quite in the right spot, whatever, you get the idea, right? So then that is what I push live, and that is the countdown that you see. So hopefully that is a little, it gives you an idea of how that works. Let me go back to here. My Wi-Fi is also really struggling today. I think my my Strata Macros app is getting disconnected. So good thing I have this Streamdeck plugged in today as well. Let me see if I missed anything in the chat. And get rid of that countdown. I don't need the countdown anymore. All right. So yeah, cool. We've got some more questions in here. Let's see. Did I? Oh yeah. So Warren, is it possible to use 2 ATEM Minis at the same time? That is in fact what I'm doing, and it gives me more shots, but it also gives me more flexibility, because that way I can actually show you the multi-view of one on the other. And I do have my camera running into both ATEMs. It's just on an HDMI splitter. so that way I can show you the camera. I can use my face in both, but you don't have to do that. Obviously, you could use it for 3 or 4 inputs on the back one, feeding into the main one. It totally works great. The one trick I would say is that because so like when I use the iPad for Strata Macros, it can only talk to one ATEM at a time. And if you actually have 2 chained, you often need to do things on both of them. So that's why I've switched to this Streamdeck now for some of my macros, because this way I can actually program in, like when I press this button, it will switch. It'll switch on both. It'll tell one ATEM to change what's on the HDMI out, and it'll have the other one do all the keyer settings and stuff like that. So I can go and do, so I can show you, like, show the chat, which reconfigures everything right, and make sure that my inputs are on the right ones. So that's just something to keep in mind if you do end up using 2 of them. But it does totally work. It's great. So yeah, along those lines, if you are using the companion Streamdeck emulator, which basically puts the Streamdeck buttons in an iPhone or an iPad, the thing that you gain by using Strata Macros is not having a computer in the mix. So because the Streamdeck is USB, it's plugged into my computer. My computer has to run the software to translate that into ATEM commands, and it works, like it's fine. But it does mean the computer has to have that app running and be connected to the network and active for the duration of the show. Although, ironically, today my iPad is not cooperating with me, so I'm glad I have this as a backup. Normally, the iPad's more stable, but my Wi-Fi is just not cooperating, and I didn't take my own advice and plug in the little Ethernet adapter. So, yeah, there's advantages to both, really. And yeah, the Streamdeck does mean that you can send commands to 2 different ATEMs, or 2 ATEMs and like your lighting or whatever you want. So it is pretty cool. What else have we got going on in the chat here? Let's keep talking about the macros. I'm going to try to group the questions. That way the table of contents is a little bit nicer. I've been adding table of contents to the streams so that you get the little chapter markers and can skip around. And it's a lot of work to go back and time code all of those. So I'm going to try to group some of the questions. The software for this is called Companion. I think it's like bitfocus.io. bitfocus.io/companion. And that is the software that I'm using to translate the Streamdeck commands into ATEM commands. So, yeah, cool. Hi, Tim. Congrats on number 2 in the backlog. That's great. So, yeah, you should be getting yours pretty soon. Simon says, does your Streamdeck allow Streamdeck functions as well? When I use mine, it makes me quit Streamdeck. Oh, yeah. I forgot. That is another one of the things to keep in mind, is that that companion software essentially takes over the Streamdeck. So you stop using the Streamdeck software that it ships with, and the companion like takes over all the buttons. So you have to configure everything in that software instead. It is great though. It is like a fantastic piece of software, and you can do so much stuff with it, which is awesome. So it's not really a problem, I think, having to get out of the Elgato Streamdeck app. Serge says you can use both Streamdeck and Companion. Okay, I've never been able to figure out how that works, but if you do know how to do that, make a video about it or something, and then we can watch. Cool. Let me scroll back up. I think I missed some of the questions earlier, and I don't want to. Yeah. So, okay. Can you output video from USB and HDMI at the same time? Yeah, totally. So there's 3. So on ATEM Mini Pro, there's 3 ways to get video out: recording to USB, USB as a webcam, HDMI, and Ethernet. And they're all, the only thing is that you can't do at the same time is use the USB port for 2 different things. It can only do one of those at a time. So it is either going to record to disk or it's going to be a webcam. Obviously, it can't do both because it's only one USB port. But that also outputs at the same time over HDMI and Ethernet. The Ethernet and the USB port are always your program out. The HDMI port is assignable to program out or multi-view or one of the inputs. So that is, that's what the HDMI port does. On the Mini, without the streaming capability, the HDMI port is also assignable. You can still switch it between one of the inputs or preview a program. It doesn't have multi-view, of course. And then the USB is, again, only going to be the webcam. Did they add, now I'm forgetting. I forgot if they added USB recording to the Mini. I don't think they did. Cool. So the, can you explain the difference between the upstream and downstream keyer? Yeah. So this is I should just do a video about this because I get this question a lot. But basically they think of it as layers. So you have like your bottom layer is the video. So like whatever HDMI input is active is your base layer. And then the upstream keyer will modify that video. So, the upstream keyer is like above it, and it can pull from another one of those sources. So you can pull in a graphic or a camera into that layer and then mess with it. So the upstream keyer can be used for green screening, which takes out the green or any color. You can do luma keying, which takes out the black. You can also use the DVE, which will scale and position within that layer. And then at the very top is the downstream keyer. And that is a lot more limited. You don't get the same, you don't get chroma keying. You only have luma keying. But that's like on the top, it's just slapped on. And again, it can be any one of the sources, but it's often used for like logos or like, in the corner or overlay graphics. So hopefully that helps. Invincible says, any way to add a USB webcam as a video input, i.e. convert the webcam to HDMI? Not really. In order to do that, you basically need a computer that can show that webcam feed on a full screen, like as full screen. You could do it with a Raspberry Pi, for example. So like if you connect a webcam to a Raspberry Pi, plug in the HDMI out of the Raspberry Pi, and then just like open up some webcam app or use some sort of hack to show that, like pull that feed into the monitor, it would work. I don't think it's a great solution. So, but it does work. Okay. Oh, wait. Weird. I thought I checked some of those off. Well, okay. The Hyperdeck is saying it will only play what's recorded on it. That's sort of like the easy explanation. The Hyperdeck can only play very specific formats. You can encode video outside of the Hyperdeck. Like I was able to use Premiere to encode some videos with like animated graphics and export them in the format the Hyperdeck expects. It is very picky about formats, and all the clips have to match. So you can like make graphics outside of it and load them into an SD card. It does work. Okay. Wow, there's a lot of folks here. This chat is very full. Okay. How is it possible to connect headphones to the ATEM Mini Pro so I can check the sound while I'm streaming? So now I've got my headphones under the table here at all times, so I can check the audio. Yeah, okay, I was afraid. You can totally hear all the construction noise. That's pretty funny. But the way this works is basically my ATEM Mini is plugged into this monitor. This is a like 24-inch Dell monitor. This has a headphone jack on it. So I'm seeing what it's doing, and I can also now hear what it's doing. And that's how I monitor the audio. And that works fine. And if you're wondering how I'm doing the... there's the garbage truck. If you're wondering how I'm doing the questions, I do have a video about that. One of the other streams, I talked about how that works. So go take a look at that. And yeah, speaking of comments, is there a way to bring in comments from live chat in Facebook? I don't use Facebook. I actually just like essentially deleted my Facebook account over the weekend. I did a whole blog post about exactly what I did. I didn't actually delete it because I don't want to delete, but I removed all the content from my Facebook account and just left up one post that just says like, I'm not on Facebook. Here's all the other places you can find me. So I don't really have any interest in figuring this out. It definitely is possible as other software you can use to pull in comments from Facebook live streams, but I don't want to support Facebook at all. So I'm not there, and I'm not going to deal with that. All right. And thanks Cajoling Technologies for the super chat. You might notice my background changed. I don't have quite the same amount of background splash color because I'm in this different set, but my background does change to match the super chat. So thank you for the super chat. And again, until I reach my goal of $500, I am actually going to be donating all the super chats and matching those donations to these organizations down below. So that is, yeah, I'm doing that until I hit 500. So keep it coming. And thank you for the super chat. Thank you for your support. All right. Is there let's talk about some USB stuff. Is there a way to have USB be preview instead of the program out? No. So unfortunately, the USB and the Ethernet are just program out. No idea if that's like, maybe we'll see something in the future change, but it's really meant for being a webcam or a recording to disk. So I think that's how it's just. I think that's just where it's at. If you do need more flexibility in terms of like inputs and outputs on this device, it is worth looking at some of the higher end models of ATEM switchers because those are made for those more serious productions where you do want to be able to do things like run a conference monitor of the presenter's slides back to them on the stage or whatever it is. So ATEM Mini is really like, it's meant for small scale productions like on a desk like I'm doing here. Small gigs, like that's what it's for, where you don't need all the flexibility that you would get when you have program out, preview out, and an aux out like you get on the television studio model. And yeah, speaking of USB, if the ATEM Mini is outputting via USB 2, what codec is it using to get full HD through that? And what are the system requirements to capture that? Both actually, I think the only reason the ATEM Mini Pro has USB 3 is so they can record to faster SD cards and like hard drives. The webcam out is an MJPEG feed. So that's just like a series of JPEG images coming really fast at the computer. And that apparently works fine with USB 2 speeds, which is like 480 megabits a second, which is a lot of megabits. Like this stream that you're watching is way under that. So the USB 2 is fast enough for that. However, it is coming out as a MJPEG feed, which means that's not something that can stream directly up to YouTube. It needs to be converted to H.264 in order to stream, which is what you would use something like OBS, like a software encoder, to do. But I will also say that like the MJPEG format is what a lot of webcams use. So that's why it works as a webcam in software like Skype and Zoom, because it's nothing special. And that is just how it works. And most webcams are USB 2 because they don't really have a need for additional bandwidth. As far as like system requirements, I've definitely noticed that it needs some amount of like some power in the computer. I was actually doing a stream yesterday on or a class on Zoom, and my computer had been on for too long, and I had been loading up Photoshop and Illustrator and all these programs, and everything was just kind of running, and I was on Zoom, and I noticed that my video was stuttering, and I was like, oh crap, like I can see Zoom is struggling with dealing with this right now. And I asked everybody, like, can you still hear me okay? And they were like, oh yeah, your audio is fine, but you're definitely like choppy. And I was like, okay, well, this is like I can see this thing falling apart in front of me, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna just like we're gonna take a 5-minute break. I'll come right back and figure this out. And I actually like right at that point, Zoom just locked up. It was just completely frozen, and I was like, well, that was good timing. Okay, and I just had to reboot the entire computer. I was not happy about that, and I had to reboot the whole thing, jump back into the meeting, and then it worked flawlessly after that. And this computer that I'm using for this is a 13-inch MacBook Pro from 2018, so it's not super old. It's a i7. I think it's 4 cores in here, quad core. It doesn't actually say on the system overview, but it's not a slow machine. I will just say that. And it was this is like probably the lowest I would use for that kind of thing. I have actually tried the ATEM Mini on my my MacBook, my 12-inch MacBook, and that is it does not work for that. That's like dual core, lower end processor. It does not work well. So yeah, hopefully that gives you some ideas. So speaking of Zoom, is there a way to make the video quality better? It's entirely up to Zoom to decide what your video quality is. That's they've been over the course of the last few months, as everybody has been flocking to Zoom. They've been struggling with that bandwidth, and they've actually been compressing video feeds a lot. I used to be able to share slides over Zoom, but now it's compressed so much that like it's all just blurry text at that point. So it's entirely up to them to decide what quality you're getting when, and it'll change throughout the day. So not a lot you can do except just give them the best quality input you can. Okay. Is there any way to set the ATEM Mini Pro stream as 720? Changing the XML file does nothing. It looks like it's hard-coded into the encoder. Yeah, I think the ATEM Mini is just fixed at 1080 everywhere internally. I don't think there's any ability to switch it to 720. So if you did need to stream at 720, then I think you're going to have to go through OBS and use OBS as your encoder. But you can change the bit rate like down pretty low to if you have a limited bandwidth situation, you can change the bit rate down to stream at a lower bit rate, and it will still look pretty good even at 1080. So I think it's fine. Okay. Camille says, is a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K in combination with the ATEM Mini Pro overkill for live streaming? No, I think it's a great combination. I don't have a Blackmagic camera. I kind of want one. I want to try one and see how that integration works, because I think that's really cool that I can control it. I don't have one, so I used to use a Lumix camera instead. I have a G7 up here that I'm using right now. But I am glad that if I did get a Blackmagic camera, it uses the same lenses as this, so I wouldn't have to buy new lenses. But I think it's a great combo. Definitely high quality stuff if you get those two together. Tim, yeah, I was waiting for the garbage man, and the garbage man delivered. Hopefully undelivered. I want them to take my garbage, not bring me garbage. Can you stream to YouTube and Facebook at the same time? You cannot. So ATEM Mini has one encoder. It'll stream to one location. If you do want to stream to multiple locations, you have to stream from the ATEM Mini to a service that can rebroadcast out to multiple locations. Restream.io is the one everybody talks about all the time. There's several that do it though, and that is yeah. There's actually not a lot of encoders that'll stream to multiple locations at the same time anyway. What screen are you using for the multi-view? I'm having trouble with connecting screens to it. Yeah, I was having that problem too. So what I've found, and there was supposed to be an update for the, there was supposed to be an update that they did, one of the last firmware updates that added support for more monitors, and it didn't change. It didn't actually change my experience with the monitors I was testing with. So like, I've had the most luck with like this Dell monitor. Works great. This is a 24-inch Dell 1080. I got like a 1920 1080 explicitly. I didn't want the monitor to be a different proportion, and I didn't want it to be a higher resolution. So even though this is like not my preferred resolution for using as a computer monitor, I do want it like 1:1. And then when I do have a computer plugged in, like my other computer screen here, this is also sent to the ATEM Mini. I want to make sure that that's also 1920 by 1080 and that I'm seeing exactly what's going into the ATEM Mini. So if I had a different shape or different resolution monitor, then you kind of get that mismatch, and that's kind of weird. So this one works great. Let me see if I have a link to it. I do have a link to it. So here's a link to this monitor. The other class of monitors that work totally fine with this are the like on-camera monitors, like field monitors. So that's like the Shogun or the any of the Field World monitors, or like the 7 or 5 inch ones. The Blackmagic recorder, like video assist recorder, works fine. And that is that's all. Those are like, I haven't had a single problem with any of those. The ones that I have had a problem with are the like small-ish like Raspberry Pi monitors. I really want like a 10-inch monitor for my multi-view because I don't need it to be this big on my desk. I just need it to be, like this big. And I tried like 3, and I couldn't get any of them to work. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe they'll work on another firmware update for that, because they did mention that they changed something to about the HDMI output to support more monitors. So maybe they'll do another rev of that, and it'll work with some more. Okay. Let's see. Is there a way to do instant replays like at big live events? I never actually have filmed an event where I need to do an instant replay. So I don't really know what the normal workflow for that is. I think I'm going to leave this for like more specialized streamers to talk about. But like just at a high level, there's no video capture in the ATEM Mini. Like you need that to happen somewhere else. So at a high level, what you need to do is use a separate recorder that can record the program out and then loop it back into the ATEM Mini. So Hyperdeck can do that, for example. I don't know exactly what you would want to do as far as macros to make that work, but something to capture a file and then play it back. You could do it with a Hyperdeck for sure. But I don't really know like what's the normal workflow for that for people, so I will just leave that for others to answer. So yeah, speaking of streaming, Andrew was doing a live stream to YouTube, and the ATEM Mini shows cache is full. So that is one of the cool things about the ATEM Mini, is that, let me show you the multi-view. Oops, not like that, like that. And what just changed? Well, that was weird. Okay. Everything's fine. This is my test ATEM Mini, and I don't have a stream key in this, so if I go on air, it's going to start blinking because it's not pushing to anything. And if I did add a stream key, it'll start streaming. And what the cache is doing is it's actually it's able to keep, like, store some amount of data in the device, so that if you lose your network connection, it'll keep recording, and then it'll try to push up the backlog. So what that means is that when viewers are looking at you, they'll see you freeze when your network drops. And then when your network comes back on, instead of skipping to live, they'll actually start playing back from wherever you left off, wherever your network dropped out, so that they don't actually miss any content. So they'll be a few seconds behind at that point, but they won't miss any of the content, which is a very cool feature of the ATEM Mini that can do that. And I think that's like, I think that's super cool that it can do that. What it means if your cache is full is that your network was offline too long, and you've now filled up your cache, and it's not able to store anymore. And at that point, once your cache is full, if you're also not streaming, like if you're still offline, you are now losing content. You're losing data until it is able to flush it back up. So if you're getting that a lot, chances are your bit rate is higher than your upload speed. So if you know what your upload speed of your network connection is, let's say it's like you can upload at 4 megabits a second. That's like the max your ISP allows. Don't stream at 4 megabits a second because you're going to be just riding the edge of that cache all the time. So you want to like drop down to a lower bit rate in order to not flood your network connection. So that's probably what's happening. So bump down your bit rate until you see that it's not constantly filling up the cache. Like right now, you can kind of see it on, you can see it here. I'm streaming up right now at 5.8 megabits a second. Cache is okay, which means that it's not filling up the cache. It's not using the cache. It's able to, I'm just like operating at a, everything that's going up is being received by YouTube. I'm not flooding my internet connection. So that's what the cache deal is. All right. We've got, oops, I lost my place in the chat. Can you talk about the uses of the ATEM Mini Pro with Wirecast or Mimolive? I've only used a couple of things like that. I haven't done too much. So those are like software-based switchers. And, OBS, vMix, Wirecast, Mimolive, those are all software switchers. The advantage of the software switchers is that they're often a lot more flexible. You can do a lot more stuff in them because it's in a computer and there's basically no limit to what the computer can do. As far as like options, there's always speed limits. So you can do fancier layouts usually. Like if you wanted to do 2 or like 3 people on a screen from Skype calls, right? Like that's pretty easy to set up in OBS. Not really possible with the ATEM Mini at all. Some of the higher end ATEMs can do it, but those are really expensive. But that's the advantage there, right? So if you wanted to use one of those because of those advantages, and you have an ATEM Mini, they still actually do work really well together. You just don't need the ATEM Mini Pro because you're going to use the ATEM Mini as a webcam input into that software. So that way you can have multiple cameras at your desk, top camera, side camera, headshot, and that would be feeding in as a single webcam into those pieces of software. What that does is it means it actually offloads a lot of the work off of your computer because now your computer is only seeing one input instead of 4 cameras, right? So that's a nice advantage. And if you have that need for like some of them have like the chat integration built in, right? Like I think eCamm, I was testing with eCamm Live, has the YouTube chat feature built in for showing comments, which is super cool. It does mean that your computer is the one then doing the streaming. And if you're okay with that, fine. Like if you have a fast enough computer, great. I don't trust this computer enough to do it in this computer, so that's why I stream from the ATEM. Along those lines, I saw a comment down below. We have vMix, OBS, and the ATEM Mini Pro. Would you use vMix for mixing and switching and stream via ATEM, or use the ATEM as the input for vMix and stream via? Yeah, so either way is fine. You can use if you use the ATEM as the input into your software switcher, and your software switcher is streaming, that works fine. It means you actually get a lot more flexibility in terms of what you can put on the screen because you can do it in software. If you do it the other way around, you can use the ATEM Mini to stream and use vMix or OBS as an input into the ATEM Mini, and then you can like key out the graphics. It's a lot more limiting because you have to use a keyer, and then that means you have to make sure your key settings are right. Like you can see sometimes this chat doesn't quite show up right. Like sometimes it's see-through because my blacks are just slightly off. But that is another good way to do it. I would say that if you have a fast enough computer, there's no problem using it to stream using vMix or OBS. It just like, I don't really want a desktop computer, and getting a fast enough laptop to do that is very, very expensive. I don't really want to spend more than $2,000 on a computer ever. So I'm not really willing to go and buy a fast enough computer where I would feel comfortable doing it in a computer. So, okay. Let's take a look at the chats. I see a lot of chatter about Zoom and stuff. I'm going to just skip it unless I see my name in front of it. So make sure you put my name in front of the question if you do have a question. This is a fun one. I need to control the ATEM Mini Pro from a remote location. If the ATEM Mini was plugged into a travel router and the other router tethered to iPhone over 4G, is there any way to control it over 4G? Yeah, it totally is. So I've got actually a very similar setup to that here. This is a separate location from where I live, and I've actually got a Raspberry Pi on both sites, and they are creating a VPN to each other. And once they're VPN'd, I can actually access anything on the network on either side from both locations. And basically, the ATEM doesn't even care that I'm controlling it from the other network. I just use the IP address on this side of the network, and it works fine. If you wanted to do that over 4G, it's no different. As long as you can get the VPN configured, then you just type in the IP address of the ATEM that's on your remote site, and it'll work just fine. Oh yeah. So besides the audio delay, so I don't know if you saw, I should have opened with this. So this was a huge deal. The ATEM Mini Pro shipped a firmware update that adds an audio delay feature, which is fantastic. Everybody was asking for it, so it's super cool they did that. I've installed that. I did a video on it. Take a look at the video. I did that last week, whenever they launched it. And yeah, it's super cool. One of the other features they added is a DVE feature. So it used to be, let me switch back to, for some reason I don't have a button for this, but I want to show you I keep doing that, the multi-view and myself. So, nope, that one. So if I go over to my ATEM and which one am I on? I'm on my test one. Okay. So yeah, I want to show you the DVE. So if the DVE is the main camera and we set it to on air, we're not doing anything, so it should look the same. Let me reset this. Okay. And great. Now I can move myself around. Yeah. Okay. So, right, I can do okay, that's not what I would do. I would do picture in picture. So you do small head in a corner somewhere, right? But what if you wanted to go bigger than 100? It used to be the limit was 100, and now the limit is not 100, and you can zoom in even farther, which is pretty weird. And yeah, so it's not you have to remember that the input is still 1080, so you are scaling up and losing resolution. You're not you're not able to use a 4K and still get a 1080 picture. You are losing resolution here, but you can zoom in, which is kind of cool. One of the ways that I think this is pretty fun is if you actually start automating this and script it with macros, you can actually now do things like this, which is, sorry, that was probably really creepy. And that was just a button press that I did on my Streamdeck. And so what that did is it brought in the upstream keyer, positioned and scaled and zoomed in a lot and cut to that, waited a couple seconds, and then switched back, turned it off. I can do a short punch in too, so that's a little bit less aggressive. But that's pretty fun. So I think that's probably I don't know. I think that's the only thing I would ever use it for. I don't know what else I would do with it, but that was cool. So yeah, that is a cool new feature though. Speaking of keyers, the ATEM Mini seems to not preserve the upstream keyer state when using the ATEM Mini buttons, but it is when using the software control. That is correct. So the ATEM Mini buttons, like the picture-in-picture buttons, not the on-off, but the ones with the corners, those are essentially presets. Think of them as presets. So it's actually switching all of the settings of the keyer when you press that. And you can press on and off, which will just turn whatever active settings are there on and off. So if I do have I'm apparently not using that keyer for this. Yeah, but if you press on and off with the picture-in-picture buttons, it'll just turn on your current settings. But if you press one of the buttons with the little thing in the corner, it does change your settings. So there's not really a solution for that. That's one of the reasons that I don't really ever use those buttons, because I never actually want that layout, right? So I use macros instead. So I want them to make it so that these buttons just run macros instead. That'd be a lot better. People are saying instant replay is possible with OBS and a plugin. I believe it 100%. That sounds great. And yeah, Epos Fox, I'm sure he's got videos about this. So go take a look at his videos. He is a streaming king. Okay, we have... Todd says, I'm using Streamyard. Yeah, Streamyard is cool. Streamyard can stream to both because they're in the cloud. And the comments come in too, so that's pretty cool. Streamyard is great. Like I actually use it for a different show because it is the easiest way to bring in a remote guest. Like hands down, there's just like no effort. It is extremely limited. Like you don't really get layout options. You just get presets that they've made. They're fine and they work, but it's nothing like using an ATEM, for better and for worse. Tim says he's been using eCamm Live. It needs a beefy Mac, and it's not easy getting more than 2 cameras in. Yeah, that's a good point, because you probably can't run more than 2 capture cards, so you need like over USB, so you probably need like the fancy ones, like the deck links, and then you need a desktop in order to do that, and that just starts adding up very quickly, which is why I like external hardware. Sid says, how do you use the ATEM Mini on Zoom? There's not much to it. Like you plug in the ATEM Mini over USB and then open up Zoom and choose that webcam option. It's pretty straightforward. Do I dare show that here? I think I do. Like I've got Zoom open and nope, that one. Jeez. I've got Zoom open preferences. I've got video here, and you can see it just shows up as one of the cameras. So if you have yours set to 30 frames a second, you'll only get one option here. If you have it set to 60 frames per second, you'll get 2 options here. But yeah, that's it. And it works great as long as your computer doesn't freak out about Zoom. All right. Oh, so Jack, yeah, if you're looking up how I do this chat, one of the steps is to install an extension in your browser so that you can install custom CSS on that page. It says it needs permission to change all of your data on all the websites you visit. And what that means is basically it can inject itself in every web page, and it gets access to every web page that is in your browser, which is definitely like a security concern. So I believe that they're not doing anything bad with it, but I have really no way to tell. This is like a risk anytime you install an extension. Now this is getting into my other show. Like if you want to hear me talk about this in great detail, my show on Thursdays that I do on my work channel, Okta, is all about online security, and we get into this a lot. And actually this is very relevant right now with the work I'm doing in the OAuth world, because browser extensions are one of the places that, yeah, they have a lot of power, and they can do things like extract data from websites or look at password boxes and sniff things. And you just kind of have to hope that the developers of these extensions haven't done anything malicious. Like that's probably the case. Where it really does get to be a problem is if like they sell it to somebody, and then the person who buys it does want to take advantage of that. So do your own risk assessment of whether you trust Styler Pro. There's also like a bunch of other extensions. I just found that one because it was like one of the first ones that showed up. But anything that lets you install custom CSS in the browser works for this hack of getting the YouTube comments this way. All right. Nasser says, I don't trust Mimolive or Wirecast. It'll crush in the middle of the stream, so I'm thinking of using these apps to ATEM as a green screen. Yeah, totally. So that's what I was hinting at. I don't think I have enough set up here to demo that. I don't think I do. But basically, like, you can treat those, instead of feeding in video into those, you would just use them as a graphics generator. And whatever you put on the screen, you make it full screen on one of your monitors, which is running into the ATEM, and you can use it as a downstream key or upstream key, and use it to overlay graphics that you generate in those apps. And that means it's doing a lot less work that way, because it's not actually handling video feeds. So it's a lot less likely to crash. Here's a question. Zach says, will I be able to restore my current audio upstream key, downstream key, macro settings after updating? Yeah, so the best way to do that is to save out from the ATEM software control as an XML file. So if you go to, into, hide the chat, switch back to multi-view, there we go. If you go into the ATEM software control, save as, and then say like test settings, this saves a giant XML file, and it looks like this. So this is where all those settings live. If you look through, you'll see, like, you can start recognizing things like, oh, here's the labels for all my inputs. Here's like what the multi-view is doing. Here's the Hyperdecks that are connected. Here's all the audio settings. And then down at the bottom are the macros, which is where it's really fun to go in and tweak those. So yeah, that is the best way. So then once you've saved it, you can go and restore, load those up, and then everything is back to normal. And that is the easiest way to do that. And then I've actually got, like, because I do a couple of different shows with this, I've got different presets with different graphics and things like that. That is, and that's how you can, like, very quickly switch between different shows. And I just noticed that my background changed. So that means that there's a super chat from Fatter Than Jim. Well, thank you for the super chat. And yes, if you do super chat me, it does change the background color. It's just very subtle right now because I'm also in daylight as opposed to downstairs where I'm in complete darkness and have complete control over the lighting. Yeah, thank you for that. And again, I am donating and matching all the super chats until I hit $500. So, speaking of downstairs, I can show you a sneak peek of what it looks like right now, because I have my camera feed pulled up on my monitor. Let me go back to this view. That is the studio that used to be just a ugly plywood floor, and now there is a nice floor over it, and the walls are no longer bare insulation. Like, this used to be that wall that was just like open insulation, and my desk was there for a couple streams, and then it was here for a couple streams, and now look how pretty it is. It's all cleaned up, and there's now trim around the windows and the door, and this it still needs some paint. Still trying to decide paint colors, but pretty cool. I'm excited, very excited to be able to use that and host these streams down there. Cool. All right. Let's keep looking at the chat. Steve says, I thought in one of your programs you could say you can use a hub out of USB-C, like the CalDigit. So the CalDigit hub is actually Thunderbolt, so it won't work. It needs a Thunderbolt computer to plug into, and this is just USB, not Thunderbolt. But you can use a USB hub on this to record to multiple drives. So I don't think I have one within arm's reach. But if you do plug in a USB-C hub, not a Thunderbolt hub, you can then plug in multiple hard drives or thumb drives, and you can actually switch to those, like switch which one is active within the software control app, which is super cool. Oh wait, thanks for the super chat. Just let my background change again. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, Doris says, can you run one HDMI from the Mini into the other? You absolutely can, which is what I'm doing here. And I would like to get my NDI thing working so I can show it to you. So let me try that again. But you do end up with only 7, of course, because one of the inputs is eaten up by the input from the other one. Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much. Okay. Let me try to get my other. So what I've got here is actually I've got this is a Apple TV, and it is running an app called NDI Monitor or NDI Monitor TV or something. And if it's on, maybe that's the problem. Maybe it went to sleep. If it's on, it actually gives you the option of pulling from different NDI sources. So it was working earlier, and there we go. So now it found my phone, which is running NDI camera. And if I choose that, we should now see that in the multi-view, yeah, okay, there it is. So now if I switch over to the multi-view of the ATEM instead of my computer screen, now you can see that Apple TV input is actually showing my phone camera, which I am super excited about. So let me switch over to, am I on the, yeah. There, now it's a little bigger. So this is what I was talking about on my desk, where I've got the 2 ATEMs stacked. And there's been some chatter, some people working on these 3D printed stands for the ATEM. And this is like a draft still, so it's not quite right, but it needs to just get a little bit higher to clear that power cord. Once it clears the power cord, it can be right up there. They actually designed it with feet, but I didn't want to use the feet, so I'm going to get little rubber bumpers, put them under there, and it'll raise it just enough, and then it'll sit like that. And that's pretty looking. And that way I can run all these cables under the other one so they don't take up so much room on my desk. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. I had a friend print them locally since he has a 3D printer and I do not, and I don't think I want to get down that rabbit hole myself of owning a 3D printer. But yeah, that's super cool. I'll drop a link to the Thingiverse page if you do want to print one of those yourself. It's pretty cool thing. Simon says, are you putting sound panels on the walls downstairs? Yeah, I want to do, it's a rectangle, like worst possible sound environment, like flat surfaces everywhere. I put a hard floor down, not carpet, because I don't want carpet. But that does mean it's a flat surface on the floor as well. I'm going to do some sort of sound paneling down there. I don't know exactly what yet. I want it to look nice too, so I'm going to try to work it into the design. I also need to pick paint colors now, so we'll see. Astro says, are there any tutorials about the IFT hue light on your channel? There's no tutorial because there's like nothing to it. Once you have hue set up, then you just go to IFT and search for like YouTube comment hue or whatever, YouTube live chat hue, and then just install it and it just works. But maybe I should do tutorial because everybody keeps asking me about it. Carlos says, have you tried the Chromecast as an input source? I think I did, and I think it didn't work because of HDCP. Chromecast is like always HDCP because it assumes you're playing copyrighted content, which I think is ridiculous. I don't remember if I tried it on the ATEM Mini Pro or the ATEM Mini, or if it was actually a different switcher I was trying it on. So I think I need to test it again. I have one at home, and I will try to remember to bring it next time. Lawrence says, can I compose a small individual video screen of different user in Zoom Live? I don't know what Zoom Live means. Into a main page with topic and background. Sorry, I thought I answered the question, but now I'm reading it and I don't. Try to ask me again. Rephrase the question and ask me again. Yeah. Mark says, how much delay would there be if you went USB-C into a second laptop and used that output to an HDMI projector? Probably a little bit. Like, it'll probably be noticeable if you are like looking at yourself talking, but it's probably fine for like other people watching. But like, I think you'll see a delay of yourself. Okay, I can see a delay in even the multi-view because my camera is delayed, right? My camera HDMI is not real time. So in my multi-view, there's a very slight delay, which I can see it. So, but yeah, it would probably work well enough. Dave says, thanks for the great info. My live stream weddings this weekend were fantastic. That's great to hear. I'm glad it went well. That's awesome. All right. I think we are just about out of questions. Oh, Steve, thank you for the super chat very much. Oh yeah, the link to the stand. Let me pull that up. I think I have the link handy. Nope, I don't. Let me search really quick. It's called the ATEM. So Thingiverse is like a giant database of 3D printable products. ATEM Mini stand, and there's a few on there. So let me find the right one. And it is, I think it's this one. Yeah, this looks right. Okay. No, that's not the one I'm using. Actually, that's an earlier version. Let me try it again. Okay, here's the one. There are actually multiple versions in that project. So if you want the one that stacks, you have to go and find the one that's mentioned as the stackable one. But yeah, that's cool. All right. We are okay, last question, and I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave after that. Is there a way to preview cameras that are not in use? So yeah, what I've got here, if you get the ATEM Mini Pro, it has multi-view built in, which means you do get to see all of your inputs. So I've got my computer for the chat. I've got my computer screen here, which I can show you the software control. I've got my camera, this camera over here, and then I've got my close-up camera. So I can see all those at the same time. The ATEM Mini Pro does that. The ATEM Mini does not have that. So that is limited with the ATEM Mini. Yeah, and okay, now the last question, I promise. Is there a good way to mount an ATEM Mini Pro into a rack mount or some rack case with everything pre-connected? I don't think a rack format will work because it is almost the same height as a rack thing. Maybe you could put it in a drawer, a rack drawer. That actually probably would work, and leave everything connected into the drawer if the cables are flexible enough to make that work. But I have heard of people putting it in like flight cases, kind of just all set in there with the foam stuff to make it like not wiggle around. That does work. So so far I haven't actually had to travel with these because nobody's traveling anymore. So all my streams are just now on my desk, basically, either at home or here. And so I just leave it here set up. But I am very, very interested in putting together a travel rig once I can get back on the road and use it for things. So yeah, I'm going to play around with that as soon as I can. And Robert, thank you for the super chat. Thank you very much. Getting closer and closer to the goal every day. All right. With that, I'm going to call us a day. I have to go get to work. So I've got another workshop coming up right after this, and another one after that. So busy day, but thank you all for hanging out with me. This was a lot of fun, and I will see you again same time next week. And definitely check out the video on my channel about the audio delay, because that is a super cool feature they just added, and I have a neat trick for helping you to actually figure out what the delay is in your camera. All right, thank you for joining, and see you next time.